Let me start out by saying that I know that everybody here is familiar with the issue of fracking in the sense that you know that you have it going on not too far away from here. And I think that that's true for a lot of people across America now. Average citizens have come into contact with the oil business in ways that they haven't in the past. Maybe some of us in Texas were used to it, but really, you know, in places like Pennsylvania, upstate New York, things like that, they're not really used to dealing with the oil business in the way that many people now find themselves dealing with it. So we're going to talk a little bit about why that matters and why this is happening. But before we do that, we really have to kind of take a step back and look at sort of the bigger picture of what we're up against. And what I see emerging in the sort of the energy debate, such as it is at the national level, is really a lot of misinformation on both sides, or perhaps a lot of unrealistic expectations on both sides. So I think the best way to sum it up is what I call the Great Divide. On the one hand, you have people that are arguing that we actually have plenty of oil in America. If the government would just get out of the way and let companies drill for it and get this stuff pumped out, everything would be great and all our energy problems would be solved. We would become energy independent and we wouldn't have to worry about what Saudi Arabia or Iran or anybody else is doing ever again. On the other side, we have a group that says, well, we should just stop using oil altogether, and that would force everybody to switch to renewable fuels, and once that transition happened, then we would all have a cleaner, happier world to live in. It's not quite that easy in either case, but I'm going to start with the sort of, you know, let's drill all we can and solve our problems that way, and then we'll come back to the other side of the divide, and hopefully we can kind of find the middle where the truth lies. But I wanted to start out with this quote from Newt Gingrich. This was back when he was running for president. I think it was in January. He said, "If we were serious, we would open up enough oil fields in the next year that the price of oil worldwide would collapse." Now that sounds really wonderful, but it's just not realistic. Let's look at how unrealistic it is. In order to do what he's talking about, we would have to find 6 fields in the United States the size of Alaska's Prudhoe Bay, and we'd have to do it by next year at this time, okay? It took Prudhoe Bay 11 years to reach full production. So how you do that in 1 year is kind of difficult to get your head around. But the other problem is that we've only found 1 field that size in the entire history of time that we've been drilling in America. So the likelihood that we're going to actually produce enough oil to have that kind of profound effect on price is simply unrealistic. Let's look a little bit at why that is. This is a chart that shows the history of discoveries in the U.S. as well as production. My little pointer is working here. The blue arrow here shows the peak year for discoveries in the U.S. And I know some of these graphs are a little hard to read. I should apologize up front. I kind of pull stuff from different things as I report my columns, and I save it in a file for when I do meetings like this. And so some of these don't reproduce as well as others. But the blue arrow points to the discovery of the East Texas field in the 1930s. And that was really kind of the highlight of oil discoveries in the U.S. And you can see after that time it began to drop off pretty dramatically. This black line represents U.S. oil production. My little pointer seems to be dying here. But the black line represents production, and you can see it peaked around 1970, which is kind of when everybody generally agrees a domestic production peak. So the gap in between, when that blue arrow and the top of the black line gives you some idea of how long it takes to bring new discoveries into production. It used to take, 20 years. Now they can maybe do it closer to 10, so the gap is narrowing somewhat. But it still takes a long time to actually start producing oil once you've found it. So the idea that we're going to just go out and start drilling and immediately we're going to produce enough oil to have a big effect in price is just not realistic. This actually updates the chart a little bit and zeroes in on the production issue. And you can see that over the last 20 years, U.S. production has declined pretty dramatically for 18 of those. You'll notice that the last 2 years, this chart goes to 2010, and it's actually gone up a little bit for 2011. But the reason that we've had that kind of little jump in production at the end here is largely due to hydraulic fracturing and the additional oil that we found domestically in places like North Dakota.